Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to 5 Minutes for Fighting. I'm your host, Jesse Rowe with Inside Fighting. And this week we have an incredible guest. We have a legend of the MMA world. We have Ken Shamrock joining me today. Mr. Shamrock, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Yourself?
I'm doing very well. Very happy to have you. It's very exciting times in the MMA world. It's obviously an incredibly fast-growing sport, but now we have so many different disciplines. We have so many different ways in which this sport is growing, and you're a part of one that's really exciting. You're part of VALOR Bare Knuckle Boxing 2, I believe. It's 2, right? Number 2?
Yes. Yep.
So on October 27th, just tell me a little bit about it and what people should be excited for.
Yeah, we're coming out with VALOR. We obviously did one earlier in the like 2019. COVID kind of hit, kind of slowed everything down. Didn't want to do fights without a crowd. It just felt like we needed to kind of work on our structure and build some apps and do some things that would help build us and get us ready to put on a show. We're at that point now where we feel like everything's kind of coming back. Fan base is there. We've watched around a little bit and watched what other bare knuckle, so-called other bare knuckle organizations that are doing, and seeing what works, what doesn't work, just kind of looking to see where we can go. And so we've actually sit back, watched, and we're at a point now where we're going to launch, like you said, October 27th at the UNF, University of North Florida. We're very excited about putting that show on. We think we've done a lot of things to make it a fan-friendly, actually a fan explosion, being able to put on a great fights. But most of all, too, is that the structure and the vision in which VALOR is going to bring these fights is also something that is so different than what anybody else is doing. And again, like I mentioned a little bit earlier about bare knuckle and saying we're true bare knuckle, is that we truly are the only organization that has true bare knuckle. And when I say that, I mean not against anybody else, what they do, that's their thing. But for me, I want it to be pure God-given talent, which is hands only, not putting tape on them, to have support on them, going back to the old school, way back in the 1800s when they were true boxing with true bare knuckle. And then, so for me, it's really bringing that back and bringing back the way that should be and the way boxing should be, which is God-given talent, and not putting on gloves or tape so that you can hit somebody more times. So we're excited about that part of it. Also, no cages, no ropes, which means guys can't go back and lay on it and rest and be able to take their time, or if they get hurt, they can go back into a shell and wait for them to recover laying up on a rope. We take that out. So now you have to use footwork. You've got to be able to survive by moving and not laying on a rope. The other thing is no clinching. And to me, that really makes a big difference, because can you imagine Mike Tyson had the no clinch rule? He was already a beast, but you imagine Vander Holyfield not being able to clinch him or hold him, or everybody, the only thing they did 1-2 and they grab him. And it just makes boxing ugly. And so we've taken that out. So like I said, we're coming in and we want to be different than what everything is out there. But at the same time, if we're going to be different, we want it to be fan friendly. We want it to be an explosion, a visual explosion for the fans, by not having the cages and ropes. So when you're getting the front row seats, you're getting a great seat. It's like you're right in the ring with the fighters.
So yeah, one of the rules that I really like about this is the rule of the ability to slap open palm punches away as like a defense mechanism. Did I read that correctly? That you can't, when you throw a punch, you're not allowed to block it with an open palm. So that's what the new middleweight champion of the UFC was doing a lot against Israel Adesanya. He was blocking with parry punches. On the topic of Sean Strickland, obviously you were the first ever champion of the UFC outside of a tournament discipline, right? Correct?
Yes, that's true.
So now we have Sean Strickland, who's the new middleweight champion of the UFC, and it's opened up this conversation about him and whether or not he's good for the UFC. What are your thoughts on Sean Strickland? What did you think when he won?
Yeah, to me, I think that, especially in the world of fighting, you got all kinds of characters, and you got to be ready for them. And it's marketing. I mean, like, as long as people want to hate you or they like you, just as long as they tune in. So it doesn't matter. I think McGregor was a perfect example. I mean, he crossed the line a few times on things that were a little bit questionable, but it still raises the viewerships. And I think as a as an owner or as a person that is promoting fights, you want that, but you got to be able to keep it somewhat under wraps where it's not going too far, where you're hurting people in the process. So I think I don't mind it. I think everybody has a character. Everybody is going to be who they are going to be. And you got to allow that to a certain point, because trying to make everybody go by the same rule sets when it comes to character is a mistake.
Right. I mean, and that's no different for Sean O'Malley too. I mean, he's a character himself. But so what you're saying is that having like Strickland actually could end up being good for the UFC, even though people perceived him to be kind of a PR nightmare, if you will, with some of the things that he says and does, that he might actually be good. He might be good for the game to have that switch up.
I don't know if there's a such thing as a PR nightmare.
Okay.
I don't know if there's even a such thing, other than unless they can get you shut down as a company or a business, or taken off the air. That might be a nightmare. But as far as, antics and the way somebody talks or says or does things, and you have no control over some of that stuff, they just do it. Obviously, you got to talk to them and got to tell them, listen, you can't do that. You got to fine them, do whatever it is you do. But in my opinion, when it comes to an organization, as long as it's creating eyeballs and people are listening and watching, you're good.
Yeah. This is actually interesting. While you're here, just literally this morning, the UFC merged with, officially launched with WWE. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that was just knowing when you were there in the early days of the UFC, seeing where it is now, joining with WWE, being publicly traded on the stock market, how does that land for you when you hear that?
Well, I can say I told you so.
Right.
I mean, I made the crossover before anybody, and I saw an opportunity, and I thought it would be something that would be a great opportunity to be able to bring those two worlds together. And unfortunately, nobody's going to say a word about that, because it's all their idea. But I saw it way early on when I went into pro wrestling. I thought this was a great opportunity to cross over, because a lot of this stuff kind of goes hand in hand.
No, I was talking to somebody about my coworker about this earlier. You were kind of the first to do it. You're kind of a trailblazer a little bit. And I think maybe everybody kind of thought of it as a gimmick at the time, but now you think about it, and the two sports do really kind of go hand in hand. And I mean, are you gonna try and play any sort of role in this? Are you looking to make any sort of comeback of any kind, or is it just you're just happy to see it is where it is now?
No, I'm just happy to be a part of the history, of how things are transpiring, because, it's always fun to look back and know that you were a part of something that's creating kind of a new path. But really my vision right now is VALOR. I think, in my opinion, that VALOR is going to be bigger than both of those things in another 5 to 10 years. I think bare knuckle is coming, and it's coming, and it's going to stay.
Ken, you're the man. Best of luck with VALOR. Make sure everybody checks it out on October 27th, VALOR Bare Knuckle Boxing 2. Ken Shamrock will be there hosting it. And yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you for joining me. Appreciate it.